All right, so for today's deep dive, you gave us this booklet called The Merits of Islam. And wow, even just like flipping through it, I'm already intrigued. It's like a window into a worldview. I haven't really spent much time considering.
Yeah, it is fascinating to consider this perspective. This booklet, I think, offers a really good chance to kind of understand how a devout Muslim scholar, might explain and share their faith with someone who isn't.
And it starts right off the bat tackling this question I think a lot of people have when they encounter like a new faith. If there are so many religions, why do Muslims think theirs is the right one? It's kind of refreshing to see that addressed so directly.
Absolutely. It speaks to a desire to have a real dialogue and understanding right from the get-go. The booklet dives into this whole concept of worshiping one God, Allah, and how that's seen as a source of strength and clarity. It argues that, when you focus your faith on a single, all-powerful being, it brings a sense of purpose and removes this, doubt or confusion that can come with polytheistic beliefs.
Okay, so it's not just about acknowledging there is a God. It's about how that singular focus can really impact your whole perspective.
Exactly. It's about the unity and the harmony of, submitting to one divine will.
There's this one part that really struck me. It compares the comfort that someone might find in a psychologist's words to the comfort that's found in the words of Allah. What do you make of that comparison?
It's really powerful. It highlights the weight given to the divine origin of Islamic teachings. It suggests that, while a psychologist might offer valuable insight based on, human understanding, the words of God as revealed through the Quran hold a different kind of weight. They carry the ultimate truth and authority and offer guidance on a much deeper level.
So it's about trusting in a source that's seen as infallible, as opposed to human knowledge, which we know is always evolving and changing.
Precisely. It's about seeking that guidance from what's perceived as the ultimate source of wisdom and truth.
That's a really interesting distinction. It makes you think about where each of us turns to for that reassurance and guidance in our own lives. But the booklet doesn't stop there. It goes on to explain how all sorts of Islamic practices can impact a person's soul, their connection to God.
It stresses that faith isn't just a belief system, it's something you live and breathe. It goes into detail about how practices like prayer fasting, giving zakat, which is charity, and even the pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj, all have profound effects on a person's inner self and their relationship with Allah.
Yeah, it's like each of these practices has this built-in mechanism for spiritual growth. Prayer brings tranquility. Zakat encourages generosity. Fasting teaches self-discipline. It's amazing how it connects those outward actions to inner transformation.
Exactly. The text really highlights that synergy between the inner and outer self. It's this idea that by engaging in these practices, Muslims are aligning their actions with their beliefs and cultivating that deeper connection with God and fostering personal growth.
And it's not just about personal growth, is it? There's a big social component to these practices, too. Like you mentioned zakat, which directly benefits the poor and the needy.
You're absolutely right. The booklet really emphasizes that Islam promotes this sense of social responsibility. Zakat, for instance, isn't just encouraged, it's a fundamental pillar of the faith. It's a mandatory act of worship that redistributes wealth and uplifts those less fortunate.
So it's about putting faith into action in a way that benefits the entire community.
Exactly. It's a powerful example of how Islamic teachings connect individual spiritual growth with the well-being of society as a whole.
And speaking of putting things into action, this booklet gets surprisingly detailed about what Islam commands and forbids. I mean, we're talking everything from how you treat your family and neighbors to personal hygiene to how you even conduct business in the marketplace. It's incredibly thorough.
It's fascinating, isn't it? That level of detail, it's not just offering some general guidelines, it's providing very specific instructions for how to navigate different aspects of daily life in a way that aligns with Islamic values.
It's like a comprehensive guidebook for living as a Muslim. It covers both the spiritual and the practical sides of life.
Precisely. And that speaks to a key aspect of Islamic tradition. It's that desire to provide clear and comprehensive guidance on how to live a life that is pleasing to God and beneficial to oneself and others.
Yeah, and it's interesting because while some of these guidelines might just seem like common sense, like across many cultures, right? Like being honest and kind and fair, there are other things that are very specific to Islamic beliefs. It really makes you think about how religion and culture kind of intersect to shape these norms.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really encourages us to think about the why behind the what of different practices. For example, there's this passage about the Islamic prohibition on alcohol. And, while some cultures see that as a personal choice thing, the booklet really explains it from this viewpoint of protecting people from harm, promoting clarity of mind, and, encouraging responsible behavior.
So it's not just about like a list of rules. It's about understanding the values and the reasoning behind them.
Yeah.
It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper than that. It gives those very specific do's and don'ts. But it also stresses like developing those inner qualities that go beyond just following the rules. Like, for instance, there's a whole section on humility.
Oh, yeah. It talks about how Islam discourages, boasting or seeking praise for yourself, and how true piety comes from like a place of sincere humility before God.
Right.
Reminds me of that saying, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. So by
Yeah.
quieting the ego, you make space for something bigger.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that focus on humility, it ties right back into that core principle of submitting to the one God, recognizing that, accomplishments and blessings come from a higher power.
And it's not just about like individual humility, right? The booklet also mentions how important it is to treat others with respect and kindness, no matter what their background is or what they believe.
Absolutely. There's a huge emphasis on social justice and equality throughout the whole thing. It reminds us that, being devout isn't just about personal devotion, it's about how you act in the world.
Right. It's like that idea of living your faith we were talking about before, putting those values of compassion and generosity and humility into action every day.
Exactly. And one of the most striking examples of this is how the booklet talks about treating your neighbors. It doesn't just say be nice to your neighbor. It's like it emphasizes really going out of your way to show kindness, to offer help, and to have good relationships, even if your neighbor isn't of the same faith.
That's so interesting. It's like these merits of Islam that the booklet is talking about. They're meant to go beyond just the Muslim community and create a more harmonious society as a whole.
Exactly. It highlights how interconnected we all are and the importance of understanding and respecting those differences.
It's easy to focus on all the little details when you're looking at a belief system, that's different from yours. But I think this conversation has really helped to unpack those details and show the deeper values at play. It's clear that this booklet isn't just trying to lay out a set of rules. It's about painting this picture of a whole way of life that's rooted in faith and compassion and wanting to connect with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's understanding the why behind the what and recognizing that even within a system of beliefs that, might seem unfamiliar at first, there are those universal values that we all connect with as humans.
And speaking of connecting with something greater, the booklet ends on a very powerful note. It straight up asks the reader to think about what they've learned and if they would want to be a part of this faith.
It's bold, isn't it? It doesn't just give you information. It really wants the reader to personally engage with it.
It really is. It's one thing to think about a belief system, but to actually consider embracing it fully.
Yeah.
That's a big step. And this booklet doesn't shy away from that at all.
It really speaks to how powerful belief is and how faith can transform you. It suggests that just understanding the merits of Islam isn't the point. It's about taking that leap and letting those beliefs actually shape your life.
And it's interesting because it never judges other beliefs or says Islam is the only way. It just kind of lays it all out there and lets the reader decide for themselves.
Exactly. That's something I found really interesting about it. It doesn't use fear or put down other faiths. Instead, it focuses on this positive, hopeful view of what life could be like if you follow Islamic principles. And it leaves it up to the reader to decide what that means to them.
It's like it's saying this is what we believe. This is why it matters to us. Now you think about it, it's very respectful.
Absolutely. It acknowledges that faith is a personal choice, and it's more about starting a conversation than forcing anyone to convert.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. I mean, we started by talking about the belief in one God. Then we got into how Islamic practices affect the individual and society. We even got into those nitty-gritty details about daily life with Islamic values.
It's been fascinating to go through all these different parts of Islamic belief as this booklet presents them. We've seen how faith and action go hand in hand, how personal behavior is connected to social responsibility, and how even small acts of worship can have a big impact on the world.
It's definitely made me think about my own beliefs and values in ways I hadn't before. And I have a much deeper understanding of Islam now.
And that's the beauty of, engaging with different points of view. It helps us understand more. It challenges us. And ultimately, it helps us approach the world with more empathy and curiosity.
I like that. So for anyone listening who maybe had some ideas about Islam already or just wants to learn more about it, this booklet is a great place to start. It reminds us that every religion has so much history and philosophy and real human experience behind it, and that's worth exploring.
And even more than that, it reminds us to ask why. Why do we believe the things we do? How do our beliefs affect us and the people around us? Those are questions we should all be thinking about no matter what we believe.
Definitely. It's about having that curiosity and open-mindedness so we can connect with the world in a deeper way.
Exactly. Because when we understand different perspectives, we can start to build those bridges of understanding and hopefully create a more harmonious world. At the end of this podcast, please share your thoughts on the book, and if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.